I am tearing up.
I just about screamed right now, and I'm not even there.
Now that's inspirational, Natalie. I feel inspired today.
I could be here for another hour.
And I was talking to my class. There were only 2 of us, and the other guy was in the hospital. So here I am.
And I always go, he winds up homeless on the street. It's my fault.
Yeah, now you sound like my wife.
And you can get off.
I don't know. Call it Google. Or call it Google.
Yeah. Control. Alexa, how did you get across?
Paul, I cut you off earlier. What were you going to say?
What?
Dang it! Don't do that to me, Paul. Don't do that to me, man.
I don't know what got into my head, but I thought this thought, if I'm working year round, I might as well get paid year round.
Sweet Talk is a weekly 20-minute podcast brought to you by the Continuing Education and Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and subscribe today. Now, it's time to get started with Sweet Talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sweet Talk, our weekly podcast here at Continuing Education Workforce Training at Idaho State University. I am your co-host here, Paul Dickey. I'm the video instruction manager and apprenticeship coordinator here at Sweet. And as always, joining me is Gary Salazar, our director. Gary, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thank you very much. Wonderful opening, and we're on a Friday. We are on a Friday today.
Yeah, we're recording on a Friday today.
It's been a quick week. Glad to be back here, man.
And just whizzed by. And as always, joining us is our magnificent co-host is Angie Wilhelm. Angie, how are you today?
I'm doing so well today. Thank you so much, Paul. Very excited for our guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have great guests. Don't we have great guests?
We have fantastic guests. And Angela's been very, very good at helping us find, really cool guests lately. We came off a good podcast the other day. We're going into another great podcast. Thank you for all that work for our fabulous marketing coordinator, Angela. Hey, and by the way, speaking of guests, joining us today is a very interesting person, Dr. Martin Jam. Dr. Jam, originally from Camaroon in Africa, is going to be talking to us today about some of his experiences. So I'm real excited to hear that. Welcome, Martin. Welcome to the Sweet Podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Angie. It's good to be here, and it's good to be amongst you people.
Oh, you're awesome. Hey, well, we'd like to go ahead and begin with all our guests. We often ask them, maybe give us a little bit of your background. How did you get started? What are you doing here? You've got a PhD. You're quite educated too. So we'd love to learn some of your experiences and the journey that's brought you here to Idaho. Would you care to help us with that?
Indeed, Gary. I traveled from Cameroon, West Africa, to study here at Idaho State University. When I came here, it was great because after 2 years, my wife and children joined me here to support me in my studies in political science. And that's how I came to be right here in Pocatello, Idaho, and to be part of the university community. It has been great. I've learned a lot, but I've also experienced a lot, for which I'm very grateful to share with you this morning.
Super. And your journey, and thank you for telling us, that's in West Africa. There might be people who don't know where Cameroon is, but it's Western Africa, near Nigeria, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, and you were there, and you came here for the education. So you have worked there in Cameroon.
Yes.
And you actually managed a hospital there for a while. Was that correct?
Yes, I was administrator of Bansor Baptist Hospital, which is in Ambazonia now. It was a Baptist hospital started by Baptist missionaries from the North American Baptist General Conference. The hospital is still being run today. I was there for about 12 years before I traveled here. And it was a wonderful experience working with staff and making sure that our patients were taken great care of.
Excellent. And can you give us a sense of how big your hospital was? I mean, how many patients were you able to help there while you were running it?
Yeah, Barnes Baptist Hospital was a 250 bed hospital.
Mhm.
And it had a men's ward, a women's ward, a children's ward, and also a private ward. It also had a maternity where newborns came to the world. And it was trying to get the staff together, having them every morning for devotionals to motivate and encourage them in God's word before we started the day. It was a hospital of 3 shifts, the morning shift, the afternoon shift, and the night shift. And I simply just worked with the staff, and I did what Gary does most of the time, management by walking around to see that things were done properly, and giving reports and getting the staff to know that they had a higher calling of making sure that the patients who came were taken care of, so that they would go home and take care of their families.
Yeah, wonderful. And the hospital's still there, is that right?
Yes, the hospital is still there, and many more hospitals have been started. There's one in Southwest Province now. There's one in there are about 2 now or 3 in the French-speaking section of Camaroon, and they're just well managed by the Camaroon Baptist Convention Health Board administration.
What a great start for you. And it was after that you decided to pursue your studies and you came to the United States.
Yes. Initially came to do public health administration. So when I came in, the political science department in ISU had both the public health administration and American government, and the fact that I was in politics and I could also get into public health was quite beneficial. So I went in, did a master's in public administration with emphasis in healthcare administration before I went in to do my doctorate in political science.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
And once you completed your doctorate, you are still here. You have completed that, and you are still here. And that you're working here in Pocatello. You've accomplished some interesting things when you've been here. I think it would be very important for the audience, particularly any of our local audience, to know that in addition to starting a nonprofit for children, which I'd love to talk about with you a little bit more, you've also done some work with our community neighborhood housing services. You've done some work with them. You've helped here with some STEM programs at the university. And you've organized meetings in one of our local neighborhoods, Alameda neighborhood downtown.
Yes.
And you're working with us here in continuing education and workforce training. So you are doing a lot of things here. You know, why are you getting yourself so involved in all of these efforts?
We want to build our community. Building our community involves all of us. We need to, all our hands must be on deck to make sure that people are taken care of, the children are taken care of, the elderly are taken care of, because that is our community. Without everyone in the community participating to build our community, without everyone participating, our community reduces to something all of us don't like. And so we must be in the business of developing, building, encouraging, and making sure that the needs of our community are being met. And it doesn't mean that I have to do a big thing. I can always do a little thing. I can always go out there and help rake leaves. I can also go out there, help the lady on my street, the older person in my street, to shovel the snow or do something. Sitting down, it shouldn't be our goal in life. We should be out there trying to make life better for the other person
Right.
on our street. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. You are engaged in our community, and we can see that now.
Yes.
One of the things that I see that you've been engaged with is you've helped start a nonprofit for children.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'd love to hear you talk about it. It's the Children's Outreach International. Is that
Yes.
correct?
The Children's Outreach Program International. It was at the height of HIV/AIDS, and it was a very hard time for people in my section of the country, Mbazonia, and the whole of Africa. And many people, parents came down with AIDS and were dying and leaving their children behind. So I talked with my family if we could do something to help those children. And the idea of the Children's Outreach Program International came up, and I applied to start that organization. And what we did was we raised money to send for children to be taken care of. It provided food, it provided education, it provided for medical care, and it also provided for jobs for those children. And that's what we did. We were in that organization trying to raise and take care of children whose parents had died because of HIV, which was really devastating the whole of Africa at that time. Things are better now. Things are better.
So I have a question for you, Martin. With these children that you worked with through your organization, is there a story that you have of one particular child, or is there one that you've heard of now that some time has passed?
Yes. I wrote a grant. I wrote a grant to the Firelight Foundation, which awarded about $20,000. And the $20,000 was sent back to Cameroon to help in training workers to work with these children. And I know of many children who were taken care of. We literally provided books for them in school. And through the workers, I got reports once every quarter of what they were doing. And from those reports, many of the children got to do jobs, and many of the children got to join the National Army. Some of the children went on to technical jobs, which was very, very important at that time because they could do something for themselves. If there were children that did a particular thing, I would have to ask some of our workers who came out of Banso Baptist Hospital to minister to these children.
What a great initiative that is. So that opportunity that you did there was for that community of children there in Camaroon.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And I just want to link a couple things together. Martin has talked a little bit about working and improving our community. Here's a man who had, a hospital administration there in a community. He's come here, he's grown, developed himself professionally, educationally, and he's continuing to help our local community here in our state. And then he also started a nonprofit from here in Pocatello to help community back in Camaroon again. I mean, that for many people, that is a whole lifetime and a career, Martin. So what an amazing, amazing journey that has been for you. I'd like to say, I wish I could be as good at you in accomplishing all those things. That's a magnificent thing. At the same time, while you're here, you're growing and you have your family here. In fact, you have a couple of wonderful daughters who are doing very well also and continuing on with their education. Would you say a word about your daughters who we've met online at a lunch and learn previously and also at a podcast? How are your daughters doing?
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for asking about those girls. I always wake up every morning being excited about what those girls are doing. Our first daughter works with 252 Solutions. It's a seeding company, and our last daughter, Lala Jam, also works with 252 Solutions. Our second daughter, Alma Jam, works with MIT. She works with students in the capacity of integration. And our third daughter is a pharmacist and is working now as a pharmacist. The girls are busy. They have busy lives, and that's what I prayed for them. And all that I do now with their mom is to encourage them, to tell them to stay strong, to serve the people that come to them graciously and kindly, because making that impression on the people that they serve brings the people back for good service, and also gives them the opportunity to mature in what they're doing.
Yes, good lessons, excellent lessons, and it sounds like they're following in your footsteps as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Martin, you talked about helping, your neighbors and doing service to community. And it sounds like you're a very charitable man. I kind of understand your philosophy, but what made you the person that you are? What made you want to give to your community? Because everyone are so busy, and we go through our lives and we do our own personal thing, and we struggle with just doing our stuff. What is it that drives you to help others?
I am a Christian, and my walk in life is trying to be like my Savior, Jesus Christ, who gave everything that he had for me. And when I look at myself, I have little or nothing to give to others. So one of the lessons we have been learning about is living there for one another, being one another's friend, being one another's companion. And as I look at our community, we need more of that. It was what Christ did, and it's what also propels me to go out. I'm a member of the University Bible Church here in Pocatello, and we have continuously worked on Christian living the Christian way, which is helping others to know who Christ is and what Christ is doing in our lives, and how we can be a good neighbor. And I think that's why I also go out and I speak on that in many of the communities around Pocatello. I do speak on the greatness of Christ, and I do speak on the goodness that Christ brought to the world. We are soon about to enjoy Christmas, celebrate Christmas. Well, it is one of the greatest holidays that I can ever think about, that Christ would leave his home in glory and come down to us, then what have I done to my neighbor? Is always the question that I ask, and Grace, my wife, and I are always asking that question. What are we doing to enhance and build our neighborhood? So, so that's what propels me to do what I do.
That's great motivation. Yeah,
Yes.
and just the audience doesn't know this, but I'd love to get your take, Martin. You've mentioned a number of times that you'd like to go back to Cameroon.
Sure.
And help in some buildings, some reconstruction. And one of the things you've asked of us is maybe to help you become involved in some of the construction activities that we have here, so you can learn how, if you had to go back, how to help build homes. And that's something you're still hoping that you can accomplish back in your community in Cameroon. And would you talk a little bit about what you hope to accomplish back in your country?
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Angie. I was very interested in the construction combine, and I came to Gary, and Gary told me there was opportunities to join the construction combine, and there was a shed that was to be built in Pocatello, and I was very encouraged and to join Steve in building that shed. That shed taught me a lot of lessons. The first lesson was that I had the opportunity to use modern tools. I had never used a nail gun. That was my first time to be taught how to use a nail gun. And I never used a square. I thought it was a ruler, but it was much more than a ruler. And thank you, Paul, for being very gentle, taking note of everything that I was doing. Yes, we built that shed. And I said, this is something that I need to learn. My country is in a war that has devastated many families. How am I going to help build my country when I go back after this devastating war where over thousands of people have been killed, many incarcerated, and many living in bushes? So I thought this would be a great thing for me to do, to know at least the basics of building sheds, because that will help me to join in building houses for people once the war is over. It's a very nasty war, which was started for no reason. There shouldn't have been a war in Cameroon. If the leaders in Cameroon would have sat down to talk with Ambazonians, former Southern Cameroons, they didn't want to talk. They thought brutality and the military were going to solve the problem, which has not been solved. But we are praying that the United Nations would come in and that the United States would come in and get the two parties to talk together so that this war is resolved, so that we can go back and I can use the knowledge that Gary gave me the opportunity to learn, to construct or help in building homes for our people who have been so traumatized and killed and are being destroyed every day by a senseless war that shouldn't have been in the first place.
Thank you, Martin.
Just to give people some context, so what we're talking about is recently with the construction combine, Steve Quinton, who's one of the lead contractors on that combine, wanted to do an instructional video on building a shed. And I'm video guy here at our department of continuing education workforce training, so I was going to film it, and Martin found out about it and wanted to participate so that he could get some basic skills. So I was there as Martin was learning some of these skills, which Martin's correct. It was obvious he'd never had a nail gun in his hand in his life. Uh, but I do have to say that Martin, you took on to it pretty quickly. You were always there, and you were always attentive to Steve Quinton's instructions and follow along with his instructions, and we're always eager to help. I mean, we were there. One day I remember it was really cold, and Martin was there, showed up, and I was there to observe you learning these skills. And so I was kind of impressed that you were just all in on helping out and learning these skills that you had never done before.
Yeah, and in addition, Paul, I also took, CEWT also has a cabinet making program here at the university. So I've taken that course. I just finished it yesterday. Kate was my teacher, and I just finished the cabinet making by making a small cabinet for my daughter. So CEWT is helping me do everything I can to be ready for service, and I'm grateful for that.
And you're planning on participating in the construction combine this year, correct?
Definitely.
And you've been helping Scott Stevens out at our office with some of that stuff as well, correct?
Yes, launch and learn. Launch and learn. I'm learning from Angie. I'm learning from Angie how to market. I'm learning from Angie how to get involved with people to come to the launch and learn, which is every third Wednesday of the month. And there are wonderful topics for our community and for the entire Idaho, if not the entire United States, to join us in our launch and learn every third Wednesday of the month at 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock lunchtime. And
you're doing really good.
He's pushing it. He's pushing
yes,
it.
Yes.
So Martin, I mean, you started this nonprofit to help children that were, had lost their parents due to the epidemic of HIV.
Yes.
But you must have a lot of skills getting community partners to work together in order to propel something like that forward. What kind of partners did you have to establish for something like that, and what does it take in, say, Camaroon to get something like that established?
I think it's what you need to market it. You need to go out and talk to the people, write to organizations, be there when they ask if they can talk with you, to talk with them, showcase what you are doing so that they can get involved in what you are doing. Because these things that I'm trying to do, I cannot do them alone. I cannot do the children's outreach alone. It has to be a community thing. It has to be everyone involved to give in either $20,000, $20 or $10 or $15 or anything, so that we can get this money, send it to the hospital so that they can get out to the community, because the hospital has a community outreach program that really works with these children. So we have been supporting that community outreach program. And so it entails people here in America, in our community, and also people in Ambazonia, Camaroon, so that these children can be taken care of. It just needs hands on deck, Paul.
So I have to ask, I mean, it not so much nowadays, but I know in the early days of HIV, it had a large stigma. So was that hard? Was that a barrier to creating this foundation? Was the stigma against HIV? I mean, did anyone look at the kids going, well, hey, their parents, had HIV? Was there any backlash from that?
Yes, there was backlash, because initially AIDS, people who had AIDS were regarded as sinners or people who were doing what God did not want them to do. And with more research and so on, they discovered that it was not all that they thought. So there was a lot of backlash. There was not only backlash in America, there was backlash, a lot of backlash in Cameroon, where some people didn't just want anything to do with, but it was sad to see children who have lost their parents and who couldn't have just sat down because of the backlash, because of the pain that these children were going through, and then sit still. We needed to do something. President Bush did do a lot. He gave $15 billion to Africa to help out with AIDS and many other things. And that was very helpful. And that's why everything became a lot better because of what President Bush during his presidency did to Africa. But yes, there was a lot of backlash, Paul.
Okay. So I'm not familiar with your country that much. How does it do economically? Is it a poor nation? Is it a rich nation? You said you ran a hospital. Did you have all the funds and facilities you needed, or was it always a struggle?
It was always a struggle. It was always a struggle, especially dealing with bills and dealing with procurement of drugs from Europe, from United States, from India. It was always a struggle. I think the struggle is even more now because of the war, that the civil war in Cameroon has also brought in a lot of struggle. Yes, Paul, Cameroon is not a rich country. It should have been a very rich country if the resources were well managed, but it is not a rich country because very few people lay hands on those resources and leave others poor. And so yeah, go ahead.
So if Cameroon is a poor country and you were running a hospital, was your hospital like maybe a haven for many people in that community?
Yes, it was a haven for many people. And the hospital, most of the times, was not even able to make it. And so we were trying to appeal for funding to take care of students, to take care of patient bills. We also had a situation in the hospital where if you got well, you could do some small work in the hospital for your bill to be covered.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah, so
so as the hospital administrator, so you not only had to run the place, but you were also facing an uphill battle to find funds to keep it running.
Yes, to keep it running. And when the economic crisis hit, it was even worse. But we did everything to take care of who we could take care of. And that was a beautiful thing to see, that out of nothing, something always came through.
Good
Oh,
ending,
wow.
good ending on that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Hey,
Yeah.
Paul, Angela, Martin, I don't know if you heard the alarm go
Oh.
off. It was, sorry, it was the alarm and my dog in the background. I don't know if you heard that whiffing going on.
Oh, I was just getting started, Gary. I was just
Yeah, I know.
it was. I'm trying to look up statistics right now in Cameroon, and
Yeah. What a fascinating story. that is.
One last thing, Gary, just one last
Mhm.
thing, please. So, Martin, you were in Cameroon as an administrator in a hospital. What was the thing? I mean, you came for education, but what was the deciding factor for you to come to Pocatello, Idaho, to continue that education? Because you were doing good work in Cameroon in a hospital, but then you just said, "Hey, I'm going to take this opportunity." What was the thing to make you take that opportunity?
We were emerging into a world where things were changing very fast. And I wanted the hospital to change with that. I wanted the hospital to move ahead with the world. And I thought getting an education, maybe in writing policy, in writing grants, in building others, learning how to create partnerships, public partnerships, private partnerships, was what I needed to do in order to keep this hospital going.
Oh, wow. So it was, again, a decision made doing service for your community.
Yes, yes. And I'm so happy to be here at CEWT, learning everything that Scott Steven is teaching me, and everyone is teaching me. Angie, I get into her office every moment, every time to ask stuff. And Paul setting my computer up and everything, and Aaron and everyone. I'm grateful for that. And I think I am trying to register this because this will be very helpful to the people that I'll serve in the future.
Very cool. Paul,
excellent.
Great questions, man. Angela, super. Mr. Martin Jam, Dr. Martin Jam, thank you. What an amazing journey this has been for you, and all the help that you've been given to people, you know, back in your country, here, and the learning that's still ahead. I'm very happy that you've chosen to work with us, and just like you may be saying, hey, you're learning. We are also learning. You know, the hardest thing we all have to do anymore is to work on ourselves. So thank you for what you are doing in the community. Thank you for all the charity that you've been providing to others and that support. You've got a magnificent family, and we are also fortunate and privileged to get to know you. For all of you out there, if you are interested in talking with Martin, or you want to get some questions from him, I mean, you can reach him here at Continuing Ed and Workforce Training. Paul is going to wrap us up here, and he's going to give you the contact information, and then we can get that to Martin, and he can get back to you. Angela, Paul, wow, this has been a very, very interesting podcast. So much more to go into. Thank you for doing that. You want to go ahead and help us close it out, Paul?
I will definitely help us close it out. So as always, Martin, thank you for being on today. Angie, as always, and Gary, again, I say this every time, can't do this without you, man. If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us at cetrain@isu.edu. Oh, I stumbled on that one today, Gary. And then you can visit our website at cetrain.isu.edu, and you can call us, especially if you're interested in that lunch and learn, at 208-282-3372. Thank you so much for listening today, and everyone be safe out there.
Wow.
Thank you.